Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about why digital and AI initiatives fail even in well-funded organizations. And I want to share one example of GE, which is the lesson that we have learned from GE's Predix failure. And one of the key reasons what I find why digital and AI initiatives fail, even in well-funded organization, is lack of accountability. Now let me ground this with a real example of Predix, which was GE's digital and industrial IoT platform that failed to scale across GE's business units. And according to studies done by Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan Management Review, General Electric invested over $4 billion in this platform Predix, and it was positioned to be the backbone of GE's digital future. So there was strong leadership backing. They had world-class engineers and they had massive funding. So in concept, it had all the success factors, and yet within a few years, the initiative was scaled back, written down, and largely dismantled. So what actually went wrong? In my view, from the studies, what I have read and researched, there was a lack of clear accountability for the business outcomes. So my takeaway from these studies, as well as from my own experience in similar initiatives, is when ownership is unclear, when ownership of business outcomes is unclear or shared, even the best funded digital initiatives struggle to create enterprise value. So the big idea that I want to share is have a DRI, a direct, responsible individual with a clear, singular ownership of the business outcome. Now, shared ownership feels very collaborative, but it often dilutes accountability, and diffused ownership never creates the value or the results it was meant to create. So the fastest way to kill a digital initiative is to make it everyone's responsibility. And when everyone is responsible, actually no one is responsible. So they say the fastest way to kill a plant is to have two people water it. The same principle applies to digital and AI initiatives. The fastest way to kill an initiative is to make it everybody's responsibility. So let's go back. Let's go back to the context of what has happened with GE. Now, Predix was designed to be a centralized digital platform to serve multiple business units of GE, which was aviation, healthcare, power, oil and gas, and others. So GE Digital built the platform, and business units were expected to adopt it and generate revenue through their operations. So it was a great idea in principle, build once and scale across units. But in reality, adoption across the business units was inconsistent. Some units experimented, some units deprioritized, and some units hesitated. Why? Because enterprise-wide value realization or the ownership of the business outcome was unclear. So that is why value realization was uneven. Value creation failed because there was no clear business outcome ownership. Though the platform worked great functionally and technically, it was quite an advanced platform. So when there is no DRI, it generally gives rise to three problems. There is no accountability, decision making slows down, and no one cares. No one really cares for the value or the business impact. So problem number one, let's go back to GE. Problem number one, no accountability. So GE Digital owned the platform Predix. So they had the engineering teams, the architecture teams, and the development teams. But who was really responsible for the value creation? Was it aviation? Was it healthcare? Was it oil and gas? Or was it GE Digital as a centralized platform? No one knew. No single business unit was accountable for turning that investment or that platform into measurable business value. So the insight here is when ownership of outcomes is diffused or unclear, value realization is unclear too. When no one owns the outcome, no one feels the pain when the value is not realized. The second problem, governance. Governance with multiple layers of governance slows down decision making instead of quick decision making. Since Predix was spread across multiple business units, every major decision required alignment across cross-functional business units, cross-functional business leaders, the technical teams, the product teams, the engineering teams, the customer-facing operational teams, and so on. This slowed down decisions, and in fact, many of the major decisions were delayed. So the insight here is when decisions require multi-layer consensus and there is no single owner, trade-offs between the decisions become harder and it slows down the speed of decision making. Problem number 3, the wrong metrics were used to track the progress. So GE basically tracked the wrong signals. Developer sign-ups were tracked and monitored instead of real market validation and engagement. There were approximately more than 20,000 developer sign-ups, but not real engagement. Only 150 apps were created from the platform. Also, another problem was unrealistic revenue generation or revenue projections were set up with the management. So the platform was predicted to generate around $6 billion of revenue when it delivered only closer to $1 billion. So probably GE might have measured revenue too soon. These large innovative projects take time to actually deliver and generate value. So promising too much too soon, as GE did, can foster unrealistic expectations. And when those expectations are not met, the result is often that the project is pulled back or even cancelled. And I have seen that in some other cases, in some other initiatives, success is measured in terms of technological features that are delivered or shipped, or the technological capabilities of the platform, but not really in terms of business impact. And technological features are not sufficient indicators of business impact. So the insight here is when wrong metrics are used to measure the progress, it fails to meet the business expectations as well as deliver value. So what are the lessons? Here are 3 lessons that we can learn from the GE's case and in general from lack of accountability. Lesson number 1 is assign a DRI, a direct responsible individual, a single accountable business owner with clear business metrics, clear revenue goals, impact goals, and set the expectations upfront. Like I said earlier, shared ownership feels very collaborative, but it often dilutes the results or the value creation. So everyone must know who owns the business or who owns responsibility for generating value. Lesson number 2, have clear decision rights. For example, have effective governance that tells you who owns the decision rights, what is the escalation matrix, and how time-bound decisions are made, when trade-offs are to be made, who makes the final call. Lesson number 3, measure value, not activity. Activity generates visibility, but value creation, value metrics create accountability. So many transformations that I have seen fail because it is not clear how value is expected to be created and who is accountable for that. So for example, if the product owner is accountable for the adoption of the platform at the centralized levels and decentralized levels, link that adoption to the business KPIs and the incentives. Measure the value that is generated, whether it is revenues, cost savings, employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and measure the adoption, where the adoption is lagging, and intervene. So when you know those metrics, when you track those metrics, you can intervene early instead of reacting late. So finally, I would like to say that GE did not struggle with Predix because it lacked the vision or the funding or the talent. In fact, they had ample talent. They had a great vision. They had a great sponsor. They had wonderful sponsors at the top, and it was well funded. The fundamental issue was that accountability for the business outcomes was not fully clear early on in the transformation. So ownership of the technological platform existed, but ownership of enterprise value creation was not clearly defined. Likewise, many digital and AI initiatives do not fail suddenly. They drift slowly when accountability for outcomes is not well defined at the beginning of the transformations. So the question I want to leave you with: who is the DRI, direct responsible individual, who is accountable for turning your digital and AI initiative into sustained business value? Thank you for watching, and see you next time.